Good day, everyone. We are the Group 6, and we are about to report about the BAGOBO and MANOBO group.
Manobo. Manobo or Manobu means person or people. It may also have been originally Mansuba, from man meaning person or people, and Suba meaning river, hence meaning river people. A derivation is from Banobo, the name of a creek that presently flows to Pulangi River about 2 kilometers below. A fourth is from man, meaning first or original, meaning Manobo is the Hispanized form. The Bagobo were the first ethnic group in Mindanao encountered by the Spaniards at the end of the 19th century. Its name was derived from the words bago, meaning new, and obu, meaning gross or grow, which referred to a recent formation of people along the Davao Gulf Coast. How did Bagobo get its name? This tribe traces its origin from the people who brought Hinduism to Mindanao. Sibulan was the center of all the Bagobo tribes when the Spaniards tried to conquer the island of Mindanao at the end of the 19th century. The geography the geography of Manobo. Most Manobo inhabit the river valleys, hillsides, plateaus, and interiors of Agusan, Bukidnon, Cotabato, Davao, Misamis Oriental, and Surigao del Sur. The whole Manobo population numbers 250,000 NCCP PACT of 1988. The subgroup Manobo inhabits a contiguous area along southern Bukidnon, northeastern Cotabato, and northwestern Davao. The Tigwahanon are concentrated in Lidagay and scattered all over the town of San Fernando, Bukidnon, close to the border of Davao del Norte. The Umayamnon are scattered around the town of Cabalangsan, Bukidnon, and the interiors of Agusan del Sur. The western Bukidnon Manobo inhabit the southwestern quarter of Bukidnon province. The Bagobo. Manobo, Obo may be thought as a several groups of people, each of whom speak one of three Bagobo languages. These languages belong to the Manobo family, scattered throughout the southern Philippines are two slowly disappearing tribes untouched by neither time nor colonization still exist in present time. Along along the desolate eastern coast of the centuries ago, new migrants mixed with the native populations, forming a new community that was given the name Bagobo. This tribe traces its origin from the people who brought Hinduism to Mindanao. Its name, its name was derived from the words bago, meaning new, and obo, meaning grow. The upland Bagobo live in the very mountainous region between the upper Pulangi and Davao rivers on Mindanao in the Philippines, whereas the coastal Bagobo once lived in the hills south and east of Mount Apo. The coastal Bagobo were influenced by Christianity, plantations, and resettlement among coastal Visayans. They now reside either with the Upland Bagobo or with the Visayans, do not exist as a separate group. That's the geography of Bagobo and Manobo.
The worldview of Manobo and Bagobo. The Manobo is located around northern Mindanao, central Mindanao, that is now presently called Saxargena, and Caraga regions where they are natively spoken. Some unlike some outlying groups make Manobo geographically discontinuous, as other speakers can be located as far as the southern peninsula of Davao Oriental, most of Davao Occidental and coastal areas of Sultan Kudarat. The Cagayan speakers are the most extremely remote and can be found in certain portions of Palawan. The worldview of Bagobo. The Bagobo is the first ethnic group in Mindanao encountered by the Spaniards at the end of 19th century. Bagobo is derived from the words bago, meaning new, and obo, meaning growth, which refer to a recent formation of people along the Davao Gulf Coast. The Bagobo has several groups of people. Each of them speak one of three Bagobo languages. These languages belonged to Manobo family until sometime in this century. There was two major groups which were distinguished from each other by geographic separation and by several cultural distinctions. The Bagobo believe in a supreme being who inhabits the sky world. Aposandawa is to be the sacred grounds of Bagobo, since time immemorial and valued among the group's richest cultural heritage. Today's Bagobo have gone a long way, though mostly are still in the hinterlands.
Bagobo House. The Bagobo are settled people practicing agriculture as well as hunting and fishing. Their chief crop is rice, which they grow in clearings on the mountain sides, since this grain is their staple food. The wool routine of its cultivation is most closely bound up with their religious belief and practices. When in December Orion appears in the sky, this is the signal for the celebration of the great yearly sacrifice and for making all things ready for the planting. Offering of rice cooked in the bamboo tubes puts most it must not be used for this purpose are made at the smith's forge to which
So let's say that the Bagobo house is a historical historical house because there's a saying that there's an Orion appears in the sky for signal for the celebration of the great yearly sacrifice and for making all things ready for the rice planting. So the Bagobo people offering some rice cooked in bamboo tubes. Pots must not be used for this purpose are made at the smith's forge, to which the men bring their working knives and other tools used in connection with the cultivation or clearing of the fields. So after that, the smith calls on his patron spirit to come and eat of the food and accept the tools here devoted to him. So that they those tools that they give to him must be used in field work, although they now belong to the spirit, and compensation must be made to him if a knife be sold or otherwise disposed of. So for the next 3 days, no man must do any work. At the end of that time, the workers go to the fields and set up in the middle of each a receptacle containing an offering of areca nuts intended for Manama, the creator. So in return for this, Manama is expected to keep mischievous spirits out of the field to grant health, large crops, and riches to the owner. So that is the history of the Bagobo house. I mean the worldview.
Now, let's talk about material culture of Bagobo and Manobo. The Bagobo do not seem to differ greatly from other Malays in appearance. They are short and slim, broad-headed, and of a light reddish complexion. Obviously because Malaysia is one of neighboring country of Philippines. These characteristics are said to be common to all the tribes about the Gulf of Davao. Though individuals are found, especially toward toward the interior who show marked traces of intermarriage with Negritos. The Ata, to the north and northeast of the Bagobo, have been called Negritos by some observers, and there are said to be pygmies in the Samal Island of the Gulf. Various phases of the life of these people are well illustrated by many of the objects included in a large collection made among the Bagobo within recent years, and lately inspired by the museum. The religious beliefs of Manobo are revolve around the concept that there are many unseen spirits who interfere in the lives of humans. They believe that these spirits can intrude on human activities to accomplish their desires. The spirits are also believed to have human characteristics. They are both good and evil in nature and can be evoked to both anger and pleasure. While the religious practices of Manobo vary slightly, there seems to be at least one common thread linking them together. Each culture believes in one great spirit. The great spirit is usually viewed as the creator figure. In the picture are the weavers of Bagobo. As an addition, Salin Tamunon was a Filipino textile weaver who was one of two recipients of National Living Treasures Award in 1998. She was known for her Bagobo Tagabawa textile and was known as the last Bagobo weaver.
And now, let's talk about the social organization of Manobo and Bagobo. First is Manobo. The traditional social structure consists of four classes. First is the Bagani, Babaylan, commoners, and slaves. The Bagani class, now gone, defended the community and went to battle. Bagani is an exclusively indigenous term that refers to the peacekeeping force of the Bonobo indigenous cultural communities. Being a Bagani does not only mean to have exemplary fighting skills, but to be able to defend the people from colonizers and entities who are robbing us from our identity. The word Bagani goes beyond being a generic term for someone deemed brave or heroic. Next class is the Babaylan, Baylan or Babaylan. The Baylan, who can still be found, is a male or female priest and healer. They are the indigenous Filipino religious leader who functions as a healer, a shaman, a seer, and a community miracle worker. The third class is the commoners. The commoners were farmers and slaves who had been seized in raids, belonged to the ruler, and were usually given away as part of the bride wealth. The fourth class is the slaves. Slaves can win their freedom if they are careful and persistent with their duties, if they are faithful to their masters, or they already paid their debt through slavery. Slaves who were treated like members of the family although still in servitude are bereaved, and was considered an insult if they were referred as slaves. One who did so was committing tempera, ridiculing someone for their low status physical handicap. Next is the social organization of Bagobo. The Bagobo The Bagobo are settled people practicing agriculture as well as hunting and fishing. Their chief crop is rice, which they grow in clearings on the mountainsides, since this grain is their staple food. The whole routine of this cultivation is most closely bound up with their religious beliefs and practices. Traditionally, Bagobo society Bagobo society is dominated by a warrior class called Magani that includes the community leader, usually a datu who wields no real power except his influence as senior arbiter and judge, qualities which derive from being a Magani. Magani is a class of warriors that includes the leader of their community or better known as a Datu, who holds or uses a weapon. A Datu has no power except his influence as senior arbiter and judge.
Next is the historical events or important events to the IP group of both Manobo and Bagobo. First, the Manobo are several people groups who inhabit the island of Mindanao in the Philippines. Actually, they speak one of the languages belonging to the Manobo language family. Their origins can be traced back to the early Malay peoples who came from the surrounding islands of Southeast Asia. So nowadays, their common cultural language and Malay heritage help to keep them connected. The Manobo cluster consists of 8 groups, which includes the Cotabato Manobo, Agusan Manobo, Dibabawon Manobo, Matigsalug Manobo, Sarangani Manobo, Manobo of Western Bukidnon, Obo Manobo, and Tagabawa Manobo. The groups are often connected by name with either political divisions or landforms. The Bukidnons, for example, are located in a province of the same name. The Agusans, who live near the Agusan River Valley, are named according to their location. The most common lifestyle of the Manobo is that of agriculture. Unfortunately, their farming methods are very primitive. The Cotabato uses a farming system called kainin. Kainin. This is a procedure in which fields are allowed to remain fallow for certain periods of time, so the areas of cultivation may be shifted from place to place. So the social life for the Manobo is patriarchal or male dominated. So the head of the family is the husband. Siyempre, polygyny or having more than one wife at a time is common and is allowed to a man's wealth. However, among the Bukidnon, most marriages are monogamous. The only exception of that is a powerful datus or the headmen of their group. Political structures of the Manobo groups are all quite similar. Unfortunately, let's say that let's come up for an example. Many social events such as weddings require political leaders. Whenever there is a negotiation for marriage, both the bride and the groom must use the local datu to make all of the arrangements. There is a wide range in the populations of the 8 Manobo groups. Many of the groups are struggling with the changing world. Outside pressures have greatly affected their respective cultures. A ruler called the Sultan is the head of the group. So I guess you know the meaning of that, so I won't explain it anymore. So in the royal, I don't know, I think it's in the royal family, only those people who can aspire to the throne. Parang dun sa mga nasa royalties, sila lang yung pwedeng makamit yung trono. Kung sino yung magiging head nila. Parang dito sa Pilipinas, like our president, parang ganun din sa kanila. So these are those belonging to the non-royal classes are under the power and authority of the royal classes. In other words, parang parang kung anong utos nung nasa itaas, gagawin natin yun. Like we're kind of slaves. So there is a wide range in the populations of the 8 MANOBO group. Many of the groups are struggling with a changing world. Outside pressures have greatly affected their respective cultures. Next is the BAGOBO. The BAGOBO constitute one of the largest groups among the indigenous peoples of southern Mindanao. They are composed of 3 subgroups, namely Tagabawa, the Klata, or Guwingan, and the Ubo. Although they belong to one social-linguistic group, Bagobo, they also differ in some ways, such as dialect, dance steps, costumes, and their color preferences, to mention a few.
They are referred to as ethnic because they are the people whose distinctive identity is rooted in history. Next. The Bagobo are the predominant inhabitants of the vast area extending from the west coast of Davao Grove to the high reaches of Davao's famous and significant mountain range of Mount Apu or Apu Sandawa to the tribal people. The Bagobo constitute one of the largest group among the indigenous people of southern Mindanao. Bagobo are the predominant inhabitants. The meaning of predominant, it is having superior strength and influence or authority. And another one, inhabitants, one that occupies a particular place regularly, routinely, or for a period of time. Inhabitants of large cities. The type worm is an inhabitant of the intestine. Next. Apu Sandawa happens to be the scared grounds of the Bagobo since times immemorial. Values has once among the groups which is culture heritage. Next. It is the homeland of the world-known Philippine eagle as well. Next. Today, changes can be easily observed, and it is due to the influence of foreign cultures such as those of the Spaniards, Japanese Americans, and other night-born countries. Next. Its political structure was composed of the chieftains called Mantano. Mantano, a Bagobo chieftain, is in his hand woven tribal costume carrying his sword. The council of elders, the Maganis, the Baybaylan, and the Sal called Alang in the native dialect. The Datu can have has many ways as he can, but upon the recommendations and approval of the first wife. In marriage, age is not an issue for as long as arrangement and settlement are reached, agreed upon, and complied with by both parties. All complex and problems are finally addressed and resolved by the chieftain with the council of elders. Um, the Datu is a title which denotes the rulers previously described in historical accounts as chief, sovereign princes, and monarchs of numerous indigenous peoples throughout the Philippines archipelago. Next, food is abundant enough to be able to supply the community for the next harvest seasons. The weavers are able to supply the needs for clothing. Next, in front of the Blue River Salinta Monon, won this year, gawad sa manlilikha ng bayan, Gamaba, for her handloom weaving a proof of the Bagobo artistry and craftsmanship. Um, Indigenous people manage their natural resources can provide a basic for formulating appropriate policies for natural resources management that benefits them while preserving their cultural belief. Environmental preservations and utilizations of natural resources are properly dealt with by the people according to their traditions, practices, and culture.
Lastly, let's talk about the issues confronting the IP group of MANOBO and BAGOBO. The indigenous people represents nearly 14% of the country's population. So parang kakaunti lang sila. Illiteracy, unemployment, and incidence of poverty are much higher among them than the rest of the population. Meaning of illiteracy is inability to read or write, so they can't up so they are unable to find work to provide their needs. And that's why the two groups are highly in poverty. So parang sila yung pinakamahirap, ay sila yung pinakamarami na may hirap. So maybe because they have lack of education. Next is the IP settlements are remote without access to basic services and are characterized by high incidence of morbidity, mortality, and malnutrition. Sa Let me clear about the bold words. The meaning of morbidity is the condition of suffering from a disease. Kaya maraming hindi makakapag-work because most of them have kind of disease or illness. Mortality, it is being a subject to death. Maraming namamatay sa kanila. Kaya, ganun. And malnutrition, lack of proper nutrition, having no food to eat, or lack of meals. Both MANOBO and BAGOBO are experiencing that. And that's one of their issues in the IP group. So I hope you understand our topic for today. And if you have any questions, you can ask us. So again, that's for today. Thank you for listening.